Today, I'm talking with a flower farmer who has mastered the art of selling to a super specific niche, florists. Now wait, even if you're not in the flower business, you'll want to tune in because we're diving into how she has built a marketing framework that works for any niche. And I think it's really powerful for you to see this at work and imagine what it could look like for your business. Let's get started. Hey there, this is Corinna Bench, and welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast. In today's market, it's not enough to just grow your product. You've got to know how to sell it too. Welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast, where we reveal online marketing strategies and tips to help farmers like you get better and more confident at marketing. Learn how to find more customers, increase your sales, and build a strong brand for your farm. Let's start the show. Well, welcome to episode 310 of the My Digital Farmer podcast. I am your host, Corinna Bench, one of the farmers at Shared Legacy Farms out in Elmore, Ohio. I'm also the founder of MyDigitalFarmer.com, which is all about trying to help other farmers like you get more confident in your marketing and sales strategy so that you can grow a profitable business. Welcome back to the show. How's everyone doing today? Big shout out to all of my regular binge listeners. And if you're new to the podcast, I'm glad you're here today. Make sure you subscribe to the show and go check out my first 10 episodes. I designed them to be an on-ramp into the marketing lingo way back when I first designed them. They're still as good as ever. Or you can just kind of look through the archives and see what jumps out at you. There's a lot of good stuff here. Another great place to go if you're new to the marketing lingo is to get onto my email list, because when you subscribe, I'm going to send you a bunch of free stuff for about 3 months. Every week you'll get an email from me that has a marketing principle, some teaching tips. I'm going to send you off to really key podcasts that you need to listen to learn stuff. I'm going to give you some free gifts. I'm going to tell you which influencers you should be following. It's really good. So you can subscribe by going to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. Today's episode is sponsored by my friends at LocalLine. If you're like me, winter is your downtime to plan and prep for the upcoming growing season. Set yourself up for success with LocalLine, the best sales platform built for farms. LocalLine is the most comprehensive software for farmers and food hubs that's out there, selling direct to restaurants, schools, wholesale buyers, running a CSA, and more. With features like e-commerce, automated inventory management, they have subscriptions, a box builder, point of sale, and more. LocalLine helps you grow sales, it saves you time, and streamlines your operations. In fact, on average, this is cool, farms that use LocalLine grow sales by 23%, and they increase their average order size by 9.5% annually. So, ready to switch to sales software that does it all? LocalLine has no setup fees, no sales percentages, and your onboarding manager will migrate your storefront for free, so you'll be up and running in no time. As a podcast listener, LocalLine is also offering a free premium feature for 1 year with your subscription when you use my coupon code MDF2025. So to claim it, go to mydigitalfarmer.com/LocalLine and then enter that coupon code MDF2025. Don't wait. Start your season strong with LocalLine today. And now back to the show. Well, let's dive right into the episode today. No small talk, because I interviewed my friend Ruth Ann Majauskas, and she is a flower farmer that grows primarily for florists. I had a fantastic conversation with her over Zoom as we recorded this episode. It actually went really long. We had a great conversation after the interview was over. But the meat of this interview is so good, and I want to get you right into it as soon as possible. It's a little bit on the longer side for an episode for me, but I decided that it was just so good, I didn't want to cut any of it out. So if you are a flower farmer and you're thinking about moving into the florist space, supplying for florists, This is definitely an episode you want to listen to, but it's also, I think, really educational for anyone, whether you're a flower farmer or not, because she does talk about the marketing principles. Like it's a case study of the marketing sales funnel at work and how it works in her particular style of industry. And so I just want you to listen to it because I think you're going to find yourself thinking through the lens of your own business and going, how would I apply that principle to what I sell and the way that I run my business? So please listen. It's really good. Ruth Ann is the owner of Abundant Blooms Flower Farm in Dorr, Michigan. And she started her farm in 2020. So it hasn't been that long, about 6 years, with her then 3 small children. And after dabbling in a few different sales models, which she'll go into in the episode, she began to focus on selling flowers solely to florists. So she now exclusively sells only to them, and she loves this model of working directly with florists. She's going to talk at length about all of it, how that works and how you cultivate that relationship and what do you even grow for them and how do you know what to grow for them and how do you stay in touch with them and how do you find new florists to work for and new buyers and create a good product and what are the struggles you have to overcome. It's so, so good. She started a YouTube channel actually in December of last year of 2024. And I think she told me in the interview that she's already got 3,000 subscribers, and that's like 3 months. So there's obviously something working here. She is teaching on that YouTube channel. She's teaching flower farmers how to sell to florists. And she actually has a new course called Selling Flowers to Florists. She does bring that up in the episode. So if you're interested, definitely tune into that. But she's a wife. She's a homeschooling mom to 5 children. And when she's not farming, her bio says that she enjoys going to Lake Michigan with her family and reading from her book every night before she falls asleep. She was a delight, and I know you're going to get a ton of value from this episode. She's a great teacher. So without another moment, let's jump in to my interview with Ruth Ann. Well, Ruth Ann, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Corinna. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really glad to have you on as well. And I want you to start out just introducing yourself. Let our audience know your background, what it is that you do to set the context.
Sure. Well, the background, it's always interesting to know where people come from. So I'm actually a nurse, graduated and joined the Air Force immediately upon graduating from college. So spent the next 7 years of my life in the Air Force as a nurse. Then I had I got married and I had 3 babies pretty close together. And I just kind of wondered like, wow, now what do I do? I had gotten out of the Air Force and wasn't doing any nursing at the time. And we had moved back to Michigan, where I'm from, after getting out of the Air Force. And we bought this 2-acre lot of land out in the country that we were loving and kind of looked around and thought, I think I'm going to plant some flowers. So that's how we got started. Very, very slowly. I had 3 very small children at the time, like a baby and a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. And it just grew very slowly from there. So now, that was in 2020, I started the farm. It was an interesting year to try anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we have almost an acre planted in production, but there's about a third of that acre that's really young woody shrubs that's not really producing yet. So I have about 2/3 of an acre that's actually producing flowers right now. I'm a flower farmer. And so I sell almost exclusively wholesale to direct to florists at this point. That was a little bit of a journey, but that's where I am at now. And we have 1 high tunnel that I got through an NRCS grant that was put up in August. So it's a very new part of the farm. And my husband works off farm full time. He has a job with benefits and all those great things, but he does a lot of work behind the scenes or when he comes home and on Saturdays, and he does a lot of the heavy lifting around here.
You said you started kind of in a different place. Can you just briefly give me a timeline of how you actually started the business? Because I think there might be some people listening who heard you say wholesale florist and went, oh, cool. But maybe are curious, well, how did you grow into that? Like, what did you dabble in first?
Sure. So I always knew there were things I didn't want to do just because of our young family. Like I never wanted to
Mm,
do flower or farmers markets, just didn't fit well with our family and kids. And
right.
so that was kind of out of it. But in 2020, I started with the flowers, and there was a vegetable farmer from our church who actually was very established and sold at farmers markets in some bigger markets a little ways away from us, like 45 minutes in Muskegon, but he had gone there for like 20 years and he offered to bring my flowers there. And so that's how I started, just making these bouquets twice a week, giving him a percentage and driving them out to his farm. He's a vegetable farmer, but he had a big walk-in cooler, so I could put them in his cooler the night before. And he took them to the farmer's market and sold them. And I made $997 my first year of farming. But it was a really great way to start because it really helped me learn how to plant. Like I'd already tried growing flowers for the year before that. So I was planting and succession planting and really coming to understand what it meant to farm and cut flowers twice a week, make bouquets. And I really wasn't sure where the business would go, but I kind of thought I would be doing some kind of retail with always having thought that I wanted to sell at some level to florists, though. It just seemed like a good way
Mhm.
to move a lot of product. At the end of that year in 2020, that winter, I took a course by Lisa Mason Ziegler called Flower Farming the Basics, I think. And that was really what kind of launched me more into flower farming and really understanding and growing in knowledge about flowers and being a farmer. But so then from there, she talks a little bit about selling to florists and different ways to sell. And so that kind of gave me the courage to the next season, so 2021, I sold to three florists, very intentionally did it very small, kept it at three. I had more flowers. I could have tried to sell to more, but I just thought I want to do this right.
Well, I'm
Couple
glad you shared that journey because it does show that there was an evolution process.
for sure.
And you don't just jump into wholesale florist sales without going through a learning curve. And I think that maybe is what that first year with your farmer friend was for you in many ways, right? It was a confidence boosting. It was giving you a chance to test your wings, practice growing different kinds of flowers. What could you be confident in? Even just helping you decide what you wanted, like the lifestyle that you wanted. That's a part of in your situation where your husband's working, like you have the freedom there to really say no, a lot more than maybe some other entrepreneurs might. And so, okay, so help me. I don't have a lot of knowledge about the flower farmer world. I know I have people who listen to this podcast, like you, who are flower farmers, and I always feel a little nervous because I'm like, I don't know the lingo. Like when someone says I grow an acre of flowers, like I can visualize an acre, but like I don't know what that translates to in terms of yield or like how much is that coming off then if you're a flower farmer, you all sort of know what that means, but I don't. So what kind of volume are you selling? How often are you making a trip to a florist to drop off these buckets to that? Like, what does that mean?
Sure. Well, I don't have a full acre in production yet,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
and some of that is, as I've grown, I've switched from growing only annuals to now growing mostly perennials and woodies. I put in
Okay.
900 woody shrubs last August.
That was that other third of the acre you were
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's not producing yet. But last I pulled my numbers and I sold over 30,000 stems last season in 2024 over about 26 weeks. So the beginning of those weeks are pretty slim pickings like bulbs and spring stuff because I didn't have my hoop house yet. So that was pretty much like
Mhm.
tulips and daffodils. So you start pretty small. But then, so probably a good 20, 22 weeks of some really good sales there. So I was selling about 2 to 3 thousand dollars worth a week, like in height of the season, me up to like 3,500 per week of the main season. So not in April, but in June. So that is like 1,000 to 1,500 stems per week off of like probably a good half acre, maybe a little more than a half an acre. So
Okay.
you're succession planting often. So you're planting in the same place multiple times. So I do a fall planted stuff, then that blooms in June, rip that out, put something else in, sometimes getting a third succession. So in Michigan, our frost-free dates are from mid-May till mid-October. So
Right.
just for reference,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So
Um,
you can grow a lot in a small space because you're growing very close together and getting multiple successions out of
Successions off
it.
of it. Yeah. Okay. Um, Talk to me a little bit about the workflow, um, in when you're in season, when it relates as it relates to sales and marketing. So are you are you texting with your florist? Are you getting order? Is there a standing order for the whole season? Like, or do you get told this before? You obviously must be, so you can plant it properly. And then how often are you touching base? How often do you go out and deliver? I'm just trying to see how busy, how busy
Yeah.
are you? And
So
where are you busy?
yeah, I have like a schedule. So I deliver twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but Tuesday is a much bigger delivery day. I actually hire a babysitter to come because my Suburban only fits so many
Mhm.
flowers and with the kids in the car, and it just was taking so long. And so I hire childcare on Tuesday, and I pretty much am delivering. I try and leave by 9 o'clock, and often I don't get home till like 2-ish. And I'm going nowhere further than 30 minutes away. So
Mm,
I'm pretty close to home, but it just takes time to go to all the
yeah.
to deliver to all these places. So that's Tuesday. Thursday, I only usually deliver to 2 or 3 places. And I usually take my kids with me. So it's a much shorter, delivery. But so I harvest basically Monday, Wednesday, and Saturdays. So Monday and Saturday and Monday is kind of like my big harvest for my Tuesday deliveries. And then Wednesday, I harvest again for the Thursday delivery as well. So they're communicating. So that's like the flower wise. And then how I communicate with them is I use a platform called Rooted Farmers, which is a nationwide um, e-commerce site for flower farmers. It was built by flower
Okay.
farmers to sell specifically to florists. They have some retail capabilities now, which I don't use at all, but it was originally started to sell specifically to florists. And so it's pretty powerful, and that's how
Okay.
um so I have a site on there basically. So it's separate
Hmm.
from my website. And then I communicate with them I do have an email service provider, and then I have a list of my florists, and then I write an email, which is very similar to itself every week. Basically,
Hmm.
I just say, like, here's what's new and blooming. This is almost done blooming. I should have this next week blooming. And then I might put 1 or 2 pictures in the email. And then it has a link to my Rooted Farmer site, which the florists have to have an account with them. It's free for them, but it's basically just like, are they a real business? Do they have a resale certificate? So they're not charged
Yeah.
sales tax. And just making sure they're a legitimate business. And then I have an account with Rooted Farmers. And so then we're all connected prior
Okay.
to selling. And then they just click the link to the Rooted Farmer site. They order through Rooted Farmers. And then it's, I think, similar to Local Line, in the sense that then I go into Rooted Farmers. I can see all my orders. I can see all the florists that have ordered. And I've set up on the back end like minimums, delivery days. And then they can either pay through there or they can pay off platform with check or Venmo or
Hmm.
something like that. But so I can pull all the orders, I can make pack lists, I can make harvest lists, which I do in print, and then I'm taking that out into the field to make sure I have what they're ordering. That's how I mostly do it. I have a couple of old
Yeah.
school florists that have like I think hardly ever been on there. Like I've literally been at their shop, like, let me help you
Yeah.
your thing here.
Aw.
I have a couple of just older, just
Older
they're
ladies,
just
yes.
not really into the
Yeah, they're so sweet
thing.
though. I
They
love
are,
it.
and they're really great customer. Like this
Yeah,
one in particular was one of my
yeah.
florists, so she's like my biggest cheerleader. But I pretty much, so I can then use Rooted Farmer on my phone in the shop, and I make a point of sale um, sale and
Okay.
put in her order. And I
Okay.
usually actually like pre I do it ahead of time and then I just change it because I know what she wants. I know what she's pretty much going to order. I know what she'll never buy. I know what she thinks is amazing. And the only time she pre-orders via text is like for a wedding or something, which she doesn't
Yeah.
do a ton of. So most of the communication is going through Rooted Farmers as far as ordering. I do have some, so I sell like kind of there's two different groups in my mind. There's brick and mortar florists and there's wedding and event florists, which most of them
Mm.
don't have a shop. Some of my brick and mortar florists do also have some weddings that they do as well. But I sell to now, as my business has progressed, I've sold to more and more wedding and event florists. And then like they just have some more specific needs. They like to get their orders in much further and ahead of time. For example, I already have orders for the month of June from some of my wedding florists. They'll send me the mood boards of their wedding, and I tell them, this is what I will have that will match your
Mm.
timeline. I mean, they understand that things
Things could happen.
change
Yeah.
because of weather, or sometimes I'll say, for example, I had one for the end of April, and I said, well, I had tulips last year at that time, but we're having a much colder spring, so I'm doubtful that we're going to have tulips this year, but if I do, I'll let you know, right? And they understand working with local flowers that
Mhm.
way. Some florists are really familiar with local flowers and some are not. So
Mhm.
sometimes you have to do a lot of education, just like because we can grow things that they've never seen at a wholesaler before, because just things don't ship well. And so they have no idea. But then you have other, like I have one florist that has a degree in horticulture and like is probably more knowledgeable than I am in half the.
Yeah. I was
So
going to
it's
ask about
a
that.
whole range.
How do you, because I'm thinking through the lens of, my retail world where I'm always trying to get my customer to increase their average cart value or like increase the frequency of their order. And let me put another type of product in front of you that you might want to become a super fan of. So you buy that too now every week. So what does that look like in your space? Um, do you find that your your florists really do just need a certain amount every week and it's probably not going to grow? Or are they open to um, you introducing them to new blooms? And how would you even do that? Is it just that picture you send in the email, or how do you
Yeah,
encourage that?
that's a great question. So I would just say like the first year that I sell to a florist, I feel like they're trying to get to know me typically.
Yeah,
So that first year where I had three florists and I delivered to them every week and I was very consistent in different things, that I'm just like gaining trust with them. The
yeah.
next season, almost all of those florists pretty much doubled their orders.
Okay.
So that doesn't always happen quite doubling, but like 30 to 50% they're buying more flowers from me. Now I feel like you do hit a cap usually because
Yeah.
capped, right? Um, but sometimes you just have to think, okay, well, what could I grow that would better serve them? Or
Mhm.
what am I, because I do think that one of my like plat
Signatures or
yeah, like one of my things I preach about is you don't want to be growing 100 different things. Like that's not very profitable. And so it's better to grow more of, a few things than to grow 100 different things because every flower has a specific harvest time and specific needs and has specific seed starting considerations. And the list goes on and on and on, right? So the more you can kind of simplify, the better.
Yeah.
But to a point, because you also want to have enough different variety to make it worth it for the florists to order from you. So there's a little bit of a trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
So part of it is like shifting. So I used to sell only annuals, and there are a lot of flower farmers in West Michigan. A lot. Like I'm part of a West Michigan group and it's like 350 flower farmers. And I know lots of people not even in that list, right? So, and this is all within a pretty small area. Now, they're not all selling to florists, but there's a lot of us. And so I have kind of moved away from a lot of the annuals, not all of them, but like pretty much there's zinnias everywhere in Michigan. There's, celosia everywhere. So I've moved away from that. And there's a couple like specific colors I'll grow or just some specific annuals I just totally cut out because I have limited space. So then I've added in more kind of like, I don't know, advanced crops or crops that people aren't growing as much,
Um,
like a bunch of the woodies, like a bunch of perennials, delphinium and different things that a lot of new flower farmers are not growing. And I did that
Yeah.
by like assessing the market. And then a lot of these crops are higher risk and higher value. So even within the same space, I can be growing delphinium instead of zinnias, and delphinium sells for a lot more than zinnias. It's also kind of a fussier plant, and there's some trade-offs, and
Trade-offs.
like, you're kind of advancing as a flower farmer and growing into that. Like
Mhm.
more advanced crops. So that's one
Yeah.
way is advanced crops. But I can give you a really specific example of how I introduced a new crop to florists last year. So it's called thornless raspberry and blackberry foliage. So I've heard flower farmers talk about this. It's so wonderful. It's a perennial. So it's something that I'll have more and more of as time goes on. And I didn't really talk to my florists about it, but they all need foliage. And this is a really great foliage that lasts forever in a vase. So it's really good for retail because they want things that last a long time. It's also a really cool foliage. It has some vining trends to it. You can also use the fruit on it, and designers love that. So it's a flexible crop in my mind to like both designers and brick and mortar florists. So I brought it into a bunch of my florists last year for the first time because it was the first season I had it. And a bunch of my brick and mortar florists that I've worked with for 4 years had never seen it, didn't know what it was. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, I really wasn't expecting it to be so unknown to them. So what I did was I just gave him a sample bunch. I said, well, just try it and see how you like it. But before I did that, I also had it on my own counter because it was a new crop to me. And I said, you're going to love it. I had it on my counter for 2 weeks and it looked just as good as the day before. I finally threw it out because I was getting a new, bouquet, so it's like personal. Like I know that's what
Yeah.
the book said, but I'm also putting it on my very own counter with a date. I have all these random flowers on my counter all the time because I'm testing the product because I want to know before my own eyes what it is. So I told him how wonderful it was. One of the florists didn't really like it and never really ordered it. Then two of the other florists, the one kind of, I didn't really think she liked it very much, but she would like order a bunch and order a bunch. And then at the end of the season, she was like, "Oh, do you have more of that?" And she just wanted more and more of it. And then the other florist she does a lot of funerals because a lot of the brick and mortar florists do a lot
Mm.
of funerals. And funerals is like, they never stop. They just keep
Yep.
going. So there are a lot of really great, like consistent business, like even around holidays, they still need flowers to have funeral flowers. And she just like fell in love with the raspberry and blackberry foliage. Then she
Mm.
wanted it for her weddings because she also does some weddings. So then at the end of the season, she's like, goes from like one bunch a week to three bunches a week. And then she has a wedding and she wants seven bunches. And I was like, okay, I'll see. I don't know how much I have left. So I've converted her into a believer of
Yeah.
this flower or this foliage that's a perennial foliage for me, and it's going to get better and better. And now she wants it for her weddings and her funerals, and she moves a lot of product. So you get someone
Mm.
that needs like 5 to 7 bunches of a perennial that goes from June till frost. That's a lot of bunches of a specific flower. So that's just like one example
Yeah.
of how I introduced a new crop to florists, and that's how I do it with anything that they're not familiar with. I give them a sample bunch, see how they like it, ask them about it the next week. What did you think of it? And sometimes, like I said, the one florist, she was like, nah, not her thing, but then other ones really love it. So
Hmm.
how I go about introducing new product because they don't always know and they don't know
Yeah.
it's available and they've
Yeah.
never seen it.
Yeah.
So
Today's podcast is sponsored by Farm Marketing School. All right, farmer, let me ask you something. Is marketing your farm something you actually enjoy? Or does it feel like a constant struggle? If you are like most farmers that I talk to, you are wearing all the hats and marketing always seems to slip through the cracks. Can I get an amen? That's exactly why I created Farm Marketing School. It's an online membership designed to help farmers like you build a simple, repeatable marketing system that actually works. Inside, you'll get bite-sized, step-by-step projects that make marketing easier. Each month, you pick what to work on, like writing better sales emails or improving your website copy or setting up your online store. And I walk you through exactly how you should be doing it. And you're not doing this alone. Every month, we have a live Zoom meetup where you can ask me questions. Meet other members of farm marketing school, get coaching, and hear what's working for other farmers. It's like having a farm marketing mentor in your back pocket. This isn't some long, overwhelming course. The projects are designed to be completed in under 30 days, so you're making steady progress without it taking over your life. So if you're ready to stop winging it and finally build a marketing system that brings in steady sales, come join Farm Marketing School today. Sign up for your first month and see what a difference it makes. Go to mydigitalfarmer.com/FMS to get started. And now back to the show. Let's talk about the whole journey of how you find these florist buyers. Like, how do they even become aware that you exist? Because you just described what is called the ascension phase in the customer value journey, where you have a customer, and then once you have a customer make their first purchase, the goal is to like get them to buy again and again and like ascend through your ascension ladder of products. And you just described an example of how you do that. But like, what's the early stages? How do you even find these buyers? How do you get them to pay attention to you? Can you share some stories there?
Right. So, yeah, on my YouTube channel, I had a comment that said, how do they find you? And I just said, they don't. I find them. And
Mm.
so that's pretty much the way it goes. So when I initially started, I just looked at a map and said, okay, I live here. Where are the closest florists to me? Because I felt like if I was in the closest, geographical proximity to them, there would be advantages to that. And so we live in Dorr, which is a pretty small little town. There are no florists in Dorr. The closest ones are about 15 minutes north of us. And then from there, you can go to Grand Rapids, and there's a bunch of options that are like 30 minutes away. So the ones that are 15 minutes from me, there were two that were like 5 blocks apart. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to start there. And it's the town where my parents live. Like I drive by these shops. Like I knew that they existed. So I went to their website and I just kind of was like, well, I don't know. We're just going to try it. Like I'd never been to either of the shops that I started at. So I just went in and I went with like samples of flowers, like I would sell them. Like they were bunched, 10 stem bunches, cut, professionally harvested at the right stage, just like I would sell them. And I just go in and I have a sheet of paper, business card, my contact information, and I just introduce myself. I'm a local flower farmer. I live in Dorr. I brought you some sample flowers. They never say no. They always take
Yeah, of
some.
course. It's
Right.
brilliant.
And I try to be like pretty, like you want to show yourself as being pretty generous, like, 6, 8 bunches of flowers, which is like $80, right? Like this, it's not like I give them like a zinnia and a sunflower. No,
Yeah.
you go in like you're gonna sell it and you give them
So they
samples.
can use it. Yeah.
So they can, right, and see it and see how
Hmm.
they last and different things, right? So that's how I always start typically is with samples. That would be to like a brick and mortar florist, not to a wedding and event florist that works out of her garage. But if they have a shop and have shop hours, that's how I initially connect with them. And most of the time that's gone quite well. So I started with just the two closest to my house. Those were two of the three in my very first season, and those are still two of my very best customers to this day.
Mm.
And so now we have a really great relationship. They know me, they know my kids, they know, we know each other. We're familiar, we know each other's families and different things. Like, so we've come to have this relationship for sure. But that's how it started. And then from there, I just kind of was like, okay, where do I want to go? And I kind of made a route in my brain of like, what would be a good delivery route as far as like, where else would I want to go to deliver flowers? And if you can group, um, some florists together, that's helpful. So in Grand Rapids, there's, multiple florists. So I was able to kind of just pick
Oh,
some
that's
more.
fun.
And then I mostly did the same thing, like go in with samples. And then I started getting into, and then you give them the way to order, my
Yeah. Like, do you follow up with
started.
them the next week? Are you
Oh
back in the
yeah.
shop, or are you
Oh yeah.
calling them, or what do you? Okay.
Yes. So I'm calling them, typically calling. So then I get them on my email list. They get an email from me every Tuesday to order for the following Tuesday. I try and send it out. I say it's Tuesday. I try and send it Monday, but like it might be at really late. So I say it's Tuesday, right? So they get
Mhm.
the email Tuesday and they can order for the following week. And so they're on my email list. I initially started by calling the florist every week. So like in my first year, I would send an email and I would call like every Monday afternoon or every Monday morning or something. I can't remember. But so I was making it, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to order from you
Mhm.
because that's one of the barriers with working with local farmers to get local flowers is it's a lot easier to order from a wholesaler. So you're trying
Yeah.
to make it as easy as possible for them to order from you. And from a wholesaler, they can go on and order everything and pay a $15 delivery fee and get every flower that they need. I'm not going to be able to supply every flower that they need for every event. First of all,
Hmm.
I don't have flowers in the winter, like just
Hmm.
starting there. So I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible for them to get in contact with me. And I actually just had a meeting with one of my florists, which I meet with usually my highest florist or someone that I think I can have a deeper relationship with and sell more flowers to. I meet with them in the off season, which is typically the off season for
Yeah.
them for wedding and event florists. A lot of them take a
Yeah.
break in the winter as well. Or have a slower schedule. And so I was meeting with one of them, and she made a comment to me, and she said, "You are hands down the easiest farmer for me to order from." And she is a girl that
Mhm.
works for her that
Mhm.
also grows flowers. And she said,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, it's harder for me to order from the girl that I see and work with
Mhm.
on a weekly basis than it is for me to order from you. So
Mhm.
it was kind of validation for me, like, okay,
Yeah.
process works. And that makes her want to order more flowers for me because if it's
Yeah.
hard, they're not going to do it, which is understandable for anybody in any situation.
Yeah, I mean, you've removed the friction. When you think about it, you've built a system, even the ordering system, the fact that you have a software platform, right, that is made it easier. And yes, you have to spend money to have that, but it creates a good experience for the customer, makes it more likely for them to buy again, right? You can set all that up. And that's
Yeah,
just one example of the system. But then you have a calling, you have an email that goes out every week, and you have a calling system, and your fulfillment is consistent, and that just builds trust. Yeah.
yeah. And then if so sometimes with the wedding and events, they're like they'll tell me they want, oh man, what is this? One girl said she wanted like a specific color, like mocha or something, and I was like, I don't know what color that is, so I'm like, like sometimes you're like, I want
Yeah.
to speak the same language because to me, mocha might be, completely different than what she's thinking. So then I'm in the field trying to get pictures as true as possible. Like, is this what you mean by that? So there is that
Hmm.
communication too, specifically with maybe not every florist, but florists that I'm working really closely with.
Yeah.
I do have their, phone numbers and they will contact me and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff too. So that does happen, but as streamlined as possible through the online platform.
Yeah. All right. Um, I was also just going to ask you if there are certain flowers that you feel like you have to have. Like, um, I'm just personally curious about this because in my model over here in the farming world, there's this idea of having a gateway product. And like this is the thing, like the ground beef, for a meat farmer, like you've got to have ground beef because everybody buys ground beef first before they dabble in the weird cuts. Like, is there something like that for you where you can walk into a new florist and be like, I got this. I know I have to have this in my inventory, or they're probably not going to take a look at me, or is that not so much the case with wholesale?
Yeah, no, I think that can be. I think they're different for a wedding and event florist and for brick and mortar florists. So I
Oh,
kind
okay.
of built my system on having sunflowers consistently every week, which is
Mm,
actually not the easiest thing to succession plant and have single stem sunflowers blooming every single week for 18 to 20 weeks. That's a really
mhm,
long time. And so I feel like I've perfected that. So for my shop florists, they know they're going to get sunflowers from me every week. And that's a staple. They need them. They would much rather buy local sunflowers than, shipping them in. So that is a important flower to me. And then I feel like that then they'll add on, oh, and well, then they'll take
yeah,
yarrow and all these other flowers. And then for the wedding and event florist, I feel like it's more it's interesting things like yarrow, which is not that crazy of a flower, but that's just like one of my biggest sellers to them. And then specialty things like delphinium,
mhm,
peonies, um, stuff like that, and some foliage, greenery, and they kind of
yeah.
like the snapdragons are really actually those sell really both in both places. Your wedding and event florists need a bunch of them, and then retail florists use those a lot. So those are some of the
How
ones.
how did you figure that out? Like, how did you figure out what they wanted from you so that you would even know what to start growing? Or was the first few years just like, just throw a bunch of seeds in the field because I liked them from the catalog?
I try not to do that. That kind of leads to
I mean,
some.
what does that research look like to figure out what
Yeah.
kind of
So, I
flowers
mean,
that are profitable too?
right. So people ask me like, oh, like, I don't know, like I was just born with this knowledge. And I'm like, nope, it's because I've literally spent thousands of dollars on education and
Mm,
hundreds of hours figuring
right.
it out.
Yeah.
So I originally took that course by Lisa Mason Ziegler, from the Gardener's Workshop, called Flower Farming Basics.
Hmm.
And I'm a member of the Association of Specialty Cut Flowers, the AFCFG, which is our, cut flower association. And that has a ton of educational resources and a Facebook page that you can be like, hey, you can ask really great questions, and seasoned flower farmers that are been there for 20 years will answer you,
Yeah.
or like retired gurus are still
Mhm.
pretty active in there. So that's a really helpful resource
Okay.
as well. But I would say I like started with what Lisa said to grow, and I have her books. And so she's just like a tried and true flower farmer. She's also in Virginia, which is a very different climate than mine. So I have had to, adapt certain things, and I can grow certain things longer than her, different cool flowers, and grow things differently. So it's not like there's without trial and error or without tweaking things or figuring things out. But she's definitely been like a flower farming mentor to me. And like I tried to find people that were tried and true and follow their advice. So I plant sunflowers the way she plants them, like the way
Mm.
she taught. I still plant sunflowers in a very similar way, which is different than how other people do it. But for me, it gives me really consistent results. And so maybe I'm just afraid to try something different, but this has
Yeah.
worked, and so I have a really great system, and so I don't change it.
Yeah.
So that's definitely how I started. And then I started moving into more perennials. And so I took another class by Dave Daly, and he's like a really great cut flower guru, but more in like perennials and woodies. And so he has a course through them, and I've heard him speak several times. I went down to Chicago
Yeah. I've heard of him. Mhm.
yeah, I went down to Chicago several years ago and heard him speak at the Ball Customer Days, which is he's a rep for them now. He was a flower farmer, but now he's a rep for them. So I heard him speak there. I've heard him speak at an AFCFG regional conference this last summer. I've emailed him questions. Like I try and, I went into these woodies, and first of all, I planted like 200 of them 2 years ago to kind of test the waters. Like, are these good? How are these going to do in my environment? And then continued to research, tried to find like the big woody growers essentially in North America. There's
Mhm.
one in Canada. Is really not that far from me because he's in the Great Lakes region. So I've like listened to everything I can from him through the AFCFG and through different places. And I've even contacted him, and he was gracious enough to even let us come to their farm. We were driving through
Wow.
there, but I had met him at the conference this summer. And so he actually wasn't at the farm when we were there because he was at their northern farm, but like his wife was there. And I mean, it was just really neat. So I saw his incredible farm. He has like 200 acres of woodies, not just him, his family. But, he's not the only person that works there. But, just like making connections with other tried and true growers to figure out what is going to work. And then I always kind of start small. And that's kind of been a theme of mine from the beginning.
Mhm.
So like I said, I didn't start by growing 900 woodies. I started by growing 180 of them or something, and then
Yeah.
seeing, oh,
Yeah.
actually this works. Or like specifically from year to year with something that's not as law has as longevity as as perennials or woodies. I just look and say, because I have my rooted farmers platform, and that keeps track of all the analytics of every
I
stem
was
that I
gonna
sell,
say, yep.
when it sells, who buys it. And so I can look in there, pull my best performers and be like, and I can also know, like last year I started growing delphinium for the very first time. And so I didn't have a ton of it available. First of all, it's a perennial, so it'll get better and better with time, but I also didn't plant, a whole
Well,
field of
yeah.
it. And I had so much demand for it. So I say, okay, that's a crop that I'm able to grow. So
Mhm.
I'm going to grow more of it. What didn't sell, or what don't I like, or what's not
Pull
profitable,
it
I'm
out.
going to cut that out.
Mhm.
So part of like just crop planning is like, I had a lot of demand for this. I'm going to grow more of this. I didn't have as much demand for this, or like I said, I don't like it, or, like I'd
Yeah.
rather grow this, or I'm going to simplify and I'm going to cut this out and grow more cosmos because
Yeah.
nobody can have enough cosmos. So that's kind of how I do it.
You have a lot of knowledge on how to do this flower farming, especially to wholesale. Like I'm just listening to you and you just have this presence, this confidence radiating out of you. You have done the work. You are continuing to learn and be a student yourself. And I want you to now let's just pivot because I know that you are now actually teaching this to other farmers who want to learn how to do it. Um, and I would love for you to just tell me, how did you even come up with the idea to start sharing what you've learned with other flower farmers?
So I felt like there was a gap in the education. Maybe I don't know everything, but I'm pretty attuned to the cut flower education. I've taken a lot of cut flower courses. Like I said, I'm a member of the ASCFG, and I just don't feel like there is specific education for farmers trying to sell direct to florists. There is components of that. Like I said, there was a component of that in that larger course I took, but it really was quite a small section of
Mhm.
it. And I know that there's sections of it in other large courses, but it's like you have to buy a $1,500 course to get, maybe a whole bunch of that you're not needing. So, and there's not a lot of very specific information about it from a farmer, from a flower farmer. I didn't feel like from doing my own market research. Like I had questions and I felt like I
You were
wasn't
looking.
able to find the answers. And so that was kind of the spark. Like I think
Mhm.
that this would actually be something I could teach. The other spark was through another flower farmer who is also a YouTuber who actually lives just a couple of miles from me. And I knew I've just run into her multiple times. And then I realized she had a YouTube channel and was watching her, and now we're kind of friends. But she was talking about how to make money in the off season and
Mhm.
what knowledge do you have that you could leverage to make money in the off season. And so that's kind of, and this was several years ago, like I was trying
Mhm.
to figure it out and felt like, boy, I would really like it if there was a roadmap here, and there's not. So maybe someday in a couple years I'll create a roadmap.
I'll
So
be the
that
one.
was
Mhm.
kind of like what sparked it originally. And then I had thought about doing it last winter, but I had a baby in November of
Mhm.
23. So I had a newborn and I just started percolating on it. And I I wrote down some stuff about it and I started creating it a little bit, but I really didn't think I'd be able to get it finished before the season started. And then actually just over a year ago, I got mastitis and I was hospitalized for 5 days. And that was sort of like the end of any trying to do any of that, and
Mhm.
kind of took a lot out of me. And it was March, and so then you're into the season. But I'm really thankful that that happened, um, because I'm really thankful that I didn't sell the course last
Yeah.
year or launch the course, because then I really was, my whole season I was thinking about creating this course. I even like took some video footage this summer specifically to put in the course, and just had this mindset of thinking about creating the course the entire season, and then this winter put it together. So that's kind of the
Hmm.
journey of how it started.
Hmm. Now, you told me that you have a YouTube channel,
Yes.
but you just started it like a few months ago, right?
December.
In
Yeah.
December. Okay, so we're recording this in on April 2nd. So 3 months, 4 months maybe.
Yeah.
And how many people are subscribed now? Did you tell me?
So right now I have like 2,300 YouTube subscribers.
In 4 months? 3 months?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Well done. Yeah, so like was that part of your, hey, I'm just gonna start sharing what I know? Um,
Well,
did you
I
have a
listened.
strategy, I guess, as you were trying to think about this?
So I listened to this really smart um, marketing podcast called My Digital Farmer.
Oh, stop it.
And I've listened to Corinna for years, years, literally years. I think I was telling you before we started recording, it was like you were in episode 20 something. So I have followed you and been an avid follower of you really for years and taken a lot of your marketing advice. And I just thought, well, I am not going to sell this course if nobody knows about it. I mean, it's pretty basic. Like, you're not going to sell if nobody's aware that you have a course, you're not going to sell it. So where are the flower farmers? And I was so personally, I enjoy YouTube and consume YouTube content. And then the idea of YouTube has been percolating in my mind also for years, actually from two different podcasts of yours. I think one of them was an interview with Seven Sons,
Mhm.
something is that about,
Yep.
he was talking about using video, not specifically YouTube, but using video in your farm marketing. And that just kind of thought, wow, I really don't do that at all. That's interesting, right? So I'm just kind of
Mhm.
percolating on that. And that's an episode from a while ago. And then
Yeah.
maybe a year-ish something ago, you had a specific podcast about using YouTube in your farm and how you were using YouTube. And so I thought, well, maybe I should try that, because Instagram honestly feels like a black hole for trying to connect to people, and there's so much noise there, and it's honestly not my preference
Mhm.
of, social media or platform to connect with people. And I much rather do teaching and education and have longer form videos and be able to have a better or just deeper connection and be able to
Yeah.
give value in the way that I would
Yeah.
do. So that's how YouTube idea even started. And I know some other flower farmers on YouTube. And I felt like in the YouTube space itself, there is not a lot of flower farmers selling flowers directly to florists and putting out content in that specific niche. Maybe a little
Mhm.
bit, but I know way more YouTube flower farmers that are doing like roadside stands and retail and different things. And so their content is much more
It's
focused on
different. Yeah.
that. And also, there's not as many northern growers. I don't know why, but there are some. I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I feel like most of the growers are like, I don't know, like in the south, like zone 7 and below. And there's a lot of flower farmers in the north that, with me that, and I just don't, for some reason, I've always kind of felt like that. Like most of the educators
Mhm.
are either on the coasts, like the Pacific Northwest, which is extremely different climate than us, even though it is northern. But so I feel like
Yeah.
that I kind of fit this niche where I could
Mhm.
speak about selling flowers to florists, reach flower farmers, and be a northern grower
Mhm.
as well, where I felt like
Mhm.
there were some gaps in the YouTube platform as well. So that's why I just like December 6th, I posted my first YouTube video. And it was a little nerve-wracking because you're thinking, is this actually gonna
I
work?
was gonna ask, what did it feel like the first time you post a video on YouTube? Because I
Don't
know I
watch
was
the first
terrified.
one.
Good for you.
I know
If,
it
if if
felt,
you're waiting for it to not feel scary, you will never start.
oh, it was terrifying. Yeah. And just like trying to figure out all the tech and all the different things, it
Yeah.
was a lot, and it was not super easy, but I just kind of like started winging it, like building the plane while you're flying. Pretty much.
Hmm.
That's what we did. And so yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking. Plus, like the whole idea was essentially a marketing strategy to strategically reach specific flower farmers in order to be able to reach flower farmers that are looking to sell flowers to florists with
Yeah.
the goal of launching my course a couple months later. So that
Yeah.
was like, it was a very strategic, thought out thing. Not that you're not welcome to watch the YouTube videos if you're not going to buy my course. That's not, how it is. But like just
Right.
trying to get the audience
Hmm.
that I was looking for. So yeah, it was scary. And then I
Yeah.
wanted to be consistent because you can't just post a video and expect
Right.
anything to happen. So I had very low expectations. And interestingly enough, my first video got like, I don't know, 37 views or something, like
Hmm.
nothing, right? Which was
Yeah.
anticipated. And then my next video was it kind of just got a lot of views. I can't even remember what a lot was, but like 1,000 maybe, which to me
Hmm.
was crazy.
A bigger leap. Yeah.
Yeah, and got me a lot of like, I don't know, like 100 subscribers to my YouTube channel overnight. And I was like, wow, okay, this might actually work. So I was really thankful that I got this like second video that seemed to really
Hmm.
at least do something, because it gave me a lot of encouragement to keep going. And
Yeah.
I tried to post a video every week. And then I was monetized. I got monetized
Hmm.
in um, oh man, I think like the very end of January. So within
Mhm.
like 2 months, I was monetized on YouTube, which means you have to meet certain criteria. You have to have 1,000
Yeah.
subscribers and get so many watch hours.
Watch hours. Yep.
I think it's 3,000 or 4,000, I can't remember. But so I was monetized within 2 months. And so you're kind of watching this progress and you're like, it kept me motivated because you just start kind of ticking it off. And I created a lead magnet to
Mhm.
try and get flower farmers that are wanting to sell to florists on my email list. So that list started at 0, like the flower farming list, and now it has almost 500, it's 470, I think, on it now. And
Wow.
at the time, yeah, so
And that's all through YouTube, right?
all through YouTube. It's
Yeah.
all coming through YouTube. So I have a lead magnet. It's yes, tips for selling flowers to florists. So I'm trying to, so it's all very strategic. I was trying to really, get the right people on my email list
Mhm.
that are interested in that,
Yeah.
information. And I try to just put out a lot of really helpful content. So even if you're not, interested in going beyond YouTube, that you're still gaining
Yeah.
value.
Yeah. Do you map that content out? Like, is that part of what you was percolating over the summer? Like, here's some of the things I could teach, or do you just think about it the day before and then you just get in
Oh,
front of a camera and start talking?
yeah, no, it's not quite that easy. I wouldn't say I was mapping it out over the summer, but now I have
You
a
have a
sheet, a
list.
Google Doc, a list of different
Yeah.
YouTube ideas, and then they just like from the questions that people ask
Yeah.
generated, like what is essentially my ideal customer interested in learning about,
Yeah.
and kind of going down that route. Now, there have been a few times I've been like, okay, I just need to make an easy video because I'm trying to be consistent with doing about a video a week. And
Hmm.
then interestingly, I just kind of deep dove into my woodies that I planted, and that is essentially like a mini education series about growing
Yeah.
weeds, especially like if you're in a similar climate to me. And that really, people were very interested in that content. And so
Mm.
that was again, like essentially what got me monetized was through that. And then I had a lot of people sign up for my email list.
Mm.
And so that was an interesting thing. But I just thought, well, I just put in all these woodies. I've done all this research on woody shrubs, and I have some that are, 2 years old, so I can speak to how much did they produce the
Mm.
first year and the second year or any, and growing things. And I just felt like I could share very easily and in depth. And I've done a lot of research, and so people were really interested in that.
Right.
So
You
that's
had a lot of confidence. You felt like you could speak with authority on that. So
right.
it was easy for you to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you had an offer, right? So now you've got this email list. You start to get specific around what does my offer look like? Did you pitch it to well, let's talk about what was your offer that you pitched to your farmers?
So in the very end of February, I launched my course, which is called Selling Flowers to Florists,
Hmm.
which
There you
is a,
go. Love
yeah,
it.
that's
Super
what it's
easy.
called. Yeah. And which is basically has like 6 hours of video content, and it pretty much holds your hand from before you ever walk into a florist shop, what crops to grow, what things to consider, delivery considerations, how to make an availability list, how to communicate with your florist, what to do in the off season, how to harvest, when to harvest, cooler considerations. I mean, I've
Yeah.
tried to make a
Yeah.
roadmap, and now I've actually had students in it. And so I've gotten some feedback. So that's been encouraging as well.
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing that I hear farmers say is this viable? Like, I really want to sell to florists pretty much exclusively, or have that be the bulk of my farm. But is it really possible? Like, is it profitable to even
Profitable.
do
Yeah.
this? And I mean, it has been for me because that I think there's a lot of people that this fits in their lifestyle
Mhm.
and in their capacity, but they feel like it's not possible. And it is for me. It has been for me.
Yeah.
So it's been great, like a great fit for our family to do this. So that I've tried to like overcome that. Like, yes, this is possible. Now, you got to be smart, and there's different things that will help you, and you have to understand um like the difficulties of the florist working with you, and set yourself apart, because I think now it's great that there's like this revolution of flower farmers in the United States, but you've got to know what to do. You don't just want to walk into a wholesaler and and not have the right tools in place, or you're going to fail and they're not going to trust you and they're not going to buy from you.
Yeah.
So just trying to set people up for success. And so it walks you through like that whole process and
Yeah.
selling your flowers.
Yeah. So you basically took the marketing framework that I teach for farmers to use on, their customers, and you applied it in this case to farmers, and you saw it work there too, which
Yeah.
is really cool. You had people buy the course, I assume?
Yeah, I did. I had 28 people buy the course, which I
How
thought was pretty
That's
good.
amazing. How did that feel?
It felt really great. Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. You're
Mm.
like, okay, well, it's working, right? Like I went from YouTube and I got my lead magnet and I got people on my email list. I think I had like 370-ish at the time on my email list. So I felt like, okay, I've got, you know, I got people here. And then you're like, is anybody going to actually buy this? And so it was pretty exciting. I really felt like if 10 people bought it, that would be a pretty big win. So the fact that 28 people, there's 28 students in it.
Mm.
It, I was like overcome, like I was like giddy and felt like I
Mm.
had to, I don't know, just like it was just exciting that it worked. And
Yeah.
it felt like, wow, if this is where it's at now, like what's possible. And
Mm.
people are really looking for it, I think. So it was nice to be able to feel like I could give back to the flower farming community as well.
Yeah. Now the question becomes, how do you continue to support them, right? Like, how do
Yeah.
you, what else do they want from you? Is there another way that you can build another product for them? I'm just thinking on your behalf, I'm thinking of the ascension ladder. Like, what does that look like for this business now, too? Something to think about. I mean, I'm not saying you have to have an answer there, but
Yeah, as soon as I finished it and it was like working, I was talking to my sister and she was like, "So what are you going to make next?" I was like, "I don't know."
I'm just gonna celebrate,
I know.
enjoy.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna get some sleep
yeah,
because it was
that's
a
awesome.
lot of work. I mean, it was, I homeschool, I got 5 kids. Like
Yeah,
I was like waking up at 5 in the morning and staying up till 11 o'clock at night working on it.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it was a process. It took a
yeah.
lot.
Well, and even having the courage to and the guts to put something like that out there, that takes a lot. Like I still struggle with, um, am I good enough? What will people think if I say this? Which everyone's always shocked when I say that, but I think it's a human condition. And so the fact that you were able to push past that and say, I'm gonna stand in my power and I'm gonna share what I know. And if people say no, they say no, but I'm gonna put it out there. Like that alone is required to get you to where you want to go. So bravo. I'm
Yeah,
so proud of you.
absolutely. It was, yeah. Like, like I said, it was a process. It was a journey
Hmm.
to even get to the point where I felt like I could create this course and have the confidence to put it out there.
Yeah. Well, I know we're kind of getting to the end here, but I wanted to ask you, as you look at both of these scenarios, like we just looked at your, I guess, digital business. Now we're selling a course to flower farmers, but also your actual flower farmer business too. Like what are the marketing lessons if you had to prepare one or two principles to share with farmers who are listening right now, flower farmers, like what would be some of those marketing lessons that you feel have been really important for you in this journey and process?
So I think there's two things. One is the fortune is in the follow-up. And
Mm.
so you have to follow up with your customers. And I think that's anywhere. I mean, that's like a business principle, right? That's not necessarily
Yeah.
specific to flower farming, but it really is true. I mean, I've heard other flower farmers essentially complain like, well, I went to a florist and gave them samples and they never contacted me. Well, they're probably not going to. That it's your job to contact them and to follow up with them and to keep putting yourself out there and to make it easy. And then I'm a big believer in like starting small and growing. And maybe that's just because that's my phase of life. And because my husband has a full-time job and because I have kids, like there's elements that go into that. But for me, slow and steady really has
Mhm.
brought me to where I'm at. And I continued to grow and I continued to get, into more advanced crops. And I continued to educate myself, because the fact of the matter is, if I would have tried to buy, 900 woody shrubs, first of all, I didn't have any money, but like I wouldn't have known how to do that in my first or second year of farming. And so it was a process of educating and really learning and keeping track of where I've
Mhm.
been to like plan out where I'm going to go. And this isn't exactly what I envisioned when I started my farm 6 years ago, that, oh, this is where I'm going to be sitting. And I didn't start my farm thinking I'm going to create a course to sell about selling flowers to florists, right? Like that wasn't in the plan, but it has, just the way it's evolved and worked. And so I think that's just like a marketing thing, in the fact that you're being consistent and you're reevaluating
Yeah.
and you're seeing what works and you're continuing in the journey as it unfolds before you, and walking through the open doors. And there's definitely been things that haven't worked. And so being able to say, to stop something that's not working, whether it's a sales channel or a crop or um, a relationship with a florist or a customer, right? Like being able to say no and move in the direction of what
Mhm.
is easier or what's working better, or um, that direction, and being able to focus and go through there and follow
Yeah.
that.
You're kind of speaking to the pace and the rigor of like how businesses quote unquote should develop. And,
Mhm.
a lot of emphasis and credence is given to those, and attention is given to those businesses that start up and like, they're like a firestorm and they just run out of the gate like a racehorse and uh have their systems up and running really fast or making tons of money right away. But there's something to be said for the slow and steady method of being thoughtful and intentional and pausing and not feeling like you have to go super fast because you're establishing your foundations so that this can stay rooted for a long time, right? And
Yeah.
um, it's not as flashy,
Mm.
but it's, one could argue, better, but at least just as good.
Yeah.
Well, Ruth Ann, I just want to acknowledge you for following your energy. Because as you're talking about how this whole journey has progressed and what you're doing now, how you're taking your knowledge and you're sharing it with other flower farmers and how that's just blowing up and it's in your strength zone and you just love it. You are like tuning in to your intuition. You are sensing where the energy is, what it seems like God wants you to do, I almost want to say. And you're just doing what feels natural and things are working out. And so I want to just bring that into the space because I think that's one of your secrets to being successful. It's not just that you're great at following up with florists or whatever. I feel like you're also really in tune to what is all coming together right now and what feels easy and what feels light and what feels fun, right? Like you're having fun. So anyone who's listening right now, as you're building your business, I hope that you can live in the land of fun, because when you do, value just comes out of that. So look for that if you've lost your land of fun. But please tell people, Ruth Ann, how can they learn more about, maybe they want to learn more about this course, or maybe they just want to go to your YouTube channel, or maybe they're like, what is this lead magnet she's talking about? So if a farmer wants to learn how to do this for florists, like where can they get in touch with you? What would you recommend?
Sure. Well, if you go to my YouTube channel, which is Abundant Blooms Flower Farm on YouTube, in the description of every video is a link to my lead magnet, which is selling tips for selling flowers to florists. So if you're
Okay.
interested in understanding a little bit more about that, go there and you can check out that lead magnet. There's also links in there to like my website. I do have a private Facebook group for flower farmers it's called Selling Flowers to Florists. You might see a theme here. And so there's links in every YouTube video to all of those things. But I would say if you want to get on my email list or get this lead magnet, which it's really got some great tips. I think there's 9 tips in there about how to get started. It's how to get started, but it's more than that. It's beyond. It's not just for like a brand new farmer. So in every description of my videos on YouTube, you will find those links. And I am on Instagram. That is like more for my florists, I feel like. I definitely show some behind the scenes things, but YouTube is probably the best place to connect with me.
All right. Well, I'll link up to your YouTube channel in our show notes. And if your lead magnet has a link, which it probably does, I'll link that up too. So you could probably find both of these things in the show notes for today. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing the story with me. And I get to know you. It's really great. I appreciate it very, very much. And I wish you success on this new little venture. I have a feeling it's going to go well. So keep in touch.
Thanks so much, Corinna. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Today's show notes can be found at mydigitalfarmer.com/310. And I will make sure that all of the links that we discussed in this interview with Ruth Ann are in there. So the link to her YouTube channel, the link to her lead magnet. So if you're a flower farmer and you want to just get that stuff directly, just go to my show notes. Okay. Now, if you like today's episode or if you want to share it with another farmer, please go and leave me a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts, or you can grab the link to the show and drop it in a text, send it to your friends. Don't forget, if you want to get onto my email list to make your marketing stronger and get some tips from me, I got some free stuff to send your way. It's going to be really helpful. If you don't like it, just unsubscribe, no hard feelings. But you can subscribe at mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. All right, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful week. And remember, I believe in you. Bye-bye.